As the nation reels from angry protests and deadly violence against police officers, Americans are more pessimistic than ever about the state of race relations in this country since the election of its first black president. A new Rasmussen report survey found that 60% of voters think race relations are worse since President Obama took office 8 years ago. Now, only 9% believe race relations are better now, while 28% say they have stayed about the same. Here to weigh in is Dr. Alex Del Carmen, who heads up the School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies at Tarleton State University. He also trains police on racial profiling. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Now, one of the nation's biggest concerns right now is how authorities treat minorities. Are police officers racially profiling individuals, or are they fairly stopping people in most cases?
You know, what we see across the United States is about 1 million police officers that are currently out in the streets as of the FBI reports on a daily basis. And so, for the most part, police officers are honest, decent, hardworking people that are doing a great job in protecting people's constitutional rights. But from time to time, we do find that there are a few police officers that should have never worn a badge, should have never carried a gun, and are sadly engaging in racial profiling.
Now, you've been a criminologist. You've also trained 15,000 police officers, quite a few people over the last few years. How has it changed? What have there been any trends that you've noticed lately?
Absolutely. You know, law enforcement has changed dramatically in the past 20 years since I got involved in training police chiefs and police officers across the U.S. What we see now, for instance, is the usage of video cameras. Police officers have dash cam, as we call them, in their cars, and they also have body cameras that actually transmit live what's going on in the streets and their interactions with people. We also see a greater level of scrutiny from the public towards them, and technology has improved, and so has the microscope in which we watch law enforcement interact on a daily basis.
For the most part, do you think that the body cameras are helping police?
There's no question. You know, most of the actual reports and complaints that are made against police officers are false. And so a body camera, a video, is actually the best tool that officer will have in being able to show that nothing ever happened, or that the person claiming wrongdoing is simply lying. But at the same time, there are those occasions when, in fact, police officers do something wrong, and the video allows the rest of the public to see it. I call it 100 hours of boredom, 1 second of terror.
It's a good analogy. Going back to racially profiling individuals, is there more of a focus now on racially profiling Muslims?
There's certainly a call for that throughout the United States. I personally don't agree with that. I've always said that is the worst thing that we can do, is to, in many ways, not only forget our constitutional rights and principles that govern all people in the United States, not only certain people, but all people. But also the other part of that is that if that is the aim, profiling Muslims in order to be able to deter terrorism, all that the terrorists have to do is engage non-Muslims in attacking us. So it really defeats its purpose.
Americans strongly believe that the media is emphasizing shootings by police officers that involve black suspects over those that are in which whites are shot. They also blame media coverage for attacks on police. And now Donald Trump says race relations are, quote, as bad as they've ever been. Is this true, and are politicians and the media to blame for all of this?
You know, I've never seen any time in the history of our United States, or any part in the world history, where the media or politicians solve any of our problems. Having said that, I do believe that these media reports that are often negative, they incite people to be angry towards law enforcement, because oftentimes we don't see the positive media coverage of police officers on a daily basis and the good job that they do. Having said that, I'm not sure where Mr. Trump is getting his data. All I know is that at the end of the day, you know, the United States is going to always remain strong. People are always going to unify towards a good cause, and I have a lot of hopes for our country going forward.
How should people comply with police, and in particular African American males? Should they take extra caution when they're stopped?
You know, I think at the end of the day, it requires police officers across the United States are incredibly nervous with what happened, last week and a couple of weeks ago in Dallas, as well as in Baton Rouge. And so they're going to be very nervous. When they stop someone for a traffic stop, they're going to be double careful about what they're doing. So we as citizens have to be very, very careful in responding to their commands and making sure that we don't make them even more nervous.
So police officers are a little more nervous, but do you think that parents of African American males should instruct their sons to take extra precautions?
I think that we minorities have been, since we were very little, have been told how to interact with law enforcement and how to be respectful. I don't think that's going to change, and I don't think we need to be extra careful per se, as long as we are aware of the fact that police officers are going to be very nervous when they make that interaction now.
I'm sure you've seen all the protests covered on television and elsewhere. How has the Black Lives Movement affected your job?
It's affected everyone's lives. I don't know whether or not it's been a positive or a negative effect. Some people claim that Black Lives Matter are a terrorist group because of the fact of what they're promoting. And other people are saying that all they're doing is raising a level of consciousness about the fact that Black lives also matter. And so I think it depends on which side of the equation you're on. What I do know is that it is a direct result. It is not a cause, but rather a symptom of all the things that we are seeing across the United States with regards to race relations recently. If we hadn't had shootings of people that were done illegally and unconstitutionally, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So moving forward, what should we do?
Well, in the sense that as a community, as a people, I think we need to engage in dialogue. I think we need to talk to our law enforcement groups, and I think the law enforcement groups need to engage in a conversation with community members. And I think there needs to be an honest, direct dialogue, and we need to keep politicians away. I mean, they only have a tendency of messing things up and steering the pot for their own benefit. And at the end of the day, we end up more divided than before we engaged in the conversation. It needs to be from the people and with the people.
Okay. Yeah, we've made significant progress, but of course we have a long way to go. Dr. Del Carmen, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.